Welcome back to the Redraft Show, brought to you by the FFD Fantasy and Profit X. So guess what? We're here today to talk to you about the wide receiver rankings for the week, or the Pleasure Chest Champion Week 7 Chev GPT official countdown. So without further ado, let's get into the list for this week. And I've got more than you bargained for. So let's start with number 5. Number 5 is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson versus the Denver Broncos. Now, Wan'Dale did emerge. He had 6 for 84 and 1 last week. He was second in the team in targets, but he tied for the lead in weeks 4 and 5. And they're playing the Denver Broncos, who have played man coverage at the highest rate in the league in the last 2 weeks. And there's no better receiver on the New York Giants against man coverage than Wan'Dale Robinson, averaging a best on the team 2.17 yards per route run. Now, what likely will happen is that Jackson Dart will use his legs, but maybe Vance Joseph decides to take that away. And so they play a little bit more zone, in which case this won't matter. But if they stick to what they've done, then Wan'Dale Robinson is my number 5 Pleasure Chest champion and my wide receiver 32 on the week. Moving on to my number 4 Pleasure Chest champion. It's going to be Jordan Addison versus the Eagles. So Jordan Addison, this is a unique play for me because everyone knows that this is a Justin Jefferson game. Everybody and their mother knows that, the Eagles famously took Jalen Reagor. I mean, it's hard for me to remember his name. I mean, he's still in the league, I think, maybe, potentially, possibly, but he hadn't done anything. And all Justin Jefferson's gone on to do is become one of, the most prolific wide receivers on a yards per game basis that the league has ever seen. But this isn't about Justin Jefferson. This is about his league mate, his running mate, and that is Jordan Addison. So Jordan Addison averages 1.77 yards per route run versus cover 6, middle of the field open defense. So the Eagles also play cover 6 at the 7th highest rate in the, over the course of the last few weeks. And the reason I'm saying the last few weeks is because it's a week-to-week league at this point. We have a lot of data, but injuries happen, things happen. So I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach and explain why Jordan Addison is my wide receiver 25 and why I'm using a 2-week sample size, because we're getting into a point now where there's injuries, there's buys, there's things, there's this, there's that, there's a wazi, there's a woozy. Anyway, the point is I'm really excited about Jordan Addison this week. I mean, he's been a coverage buster. I know that we don't have any sort of clarity whether or not it's going to be JJ McCarthy or, what's my man's name? It's escaping me right now. Carson Wentz. Yeah, revenge game, Carson Wentz. So Ginger Mustard versus the Eagles in a revenge game. If if you've been following football for more than, 7 years, then you would understand why this is really interesting to see how. But look, anyway, Justin Jefferson, my wide receiver 25, my number 4 Pleasure Chest champion on the week. So we spent way too much time on that, but let's move on to our number 3 Pleasure Chest champion, and that's going to be Stefon Diggs. So you had all the experts coming out and telling you Stefon Diggs was washed. Stefon Diggs, he can't do this, he can't do that. Shut the up. All right, Stefon Diggs is not washed. He averaged 15 points a game before tearing his ACL, and now he's back. And so let me just hit you with a couple facts about Stefon Diggs real quick. If you will, if you'll allow me, well, I can do whatever I want. It's my channel, whatever. So Stefon Diggs is back to his old ways now that he's a full-time player. Only from weeks 3 through 6, he put up a 24% targets per route run versus zone. The Titans play about 90% zone, whether that's cover 2, 3, 4, or cover 6. Okay. Beyond that, since week 3, only Puka Nacua and JSN have a higher targets per route run when lined up out wide than Stefon Diggs. Okay. Now it's a smaller sample size. There's 45 routes over the course of the last 4 weeks versus 80 and 83 respectively for Puka Nacua and JSN. But that's elite company to be mentioned in. And it's about a 37% targets per route run rate. So that's why Stefon Diggs makes the list this week as my number 3 Pleasure Chest champion. My number 2 Pleasure Chest champion is going to be Mike Evans. So big Mike, Hall of Fame Mike Evans, the original light-skinned Al-Gaib, is taking on the Detroit Lions. And so in the last 2 weeks, the Detroit Lions are allowing the 5th most fantasy points per dropback versus man coverage. It's a consolidated target share probably between him and Cade Otton and Rashad White. And then if you want to sprinkle in, if you want to get nasty and you want to sprinkle in some Tez Johnson or Cameron Johnson, the Johnson and Johnson twins, then you can do that as well. But myself personally, I'm going to roll with the big dog. I guess that's why they got me the big dog. I don't know the Benny the Butcher lyrics. I don't know Benny the Butcher lyrics. I do, but I don't know those. So anyway, Mike Evans taking on the Detroit Lions. The last time that he played the Detroit Lions in the playoffs, he went 8 for 147 and 1. So then Chris Godwin comes back early last year and he goes 7 for 117 and 1. What am I trying to tell you? That outside wide receivers usually feast against the Detroit Lions, and Chris Godwin lined up in the slot primarily. But if you recall, if you watched that game at all, then you remember that they did everything they could to take away Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin was able to feast during that period of time. So again, Mike Evans, my number 3 pleasure chest champion this week, or number 2. I can't count. Hey, whatever. I got so excited I lost count. Anyway, Mike Evans is number 2, not number 3. My number 1 pleasure chest champion. All right. It's going to be a guy that we've caped for quite some time. We got robbed of a touchdown last week. It would have been his 6th touchdown in 5 games. But even still, he's my number 1 pleasure chest champion on the week. And we're talking about Odunze. Odunze got the touchdown call back, only got 5 targets. It was really disappointing. It was tearing of garments and gnashing of teeth. But if you've seen that touchdown catch, you just know it's because Odunze is him. And now we have DJ Moore potentially missing some time with a groin injury. You can do more digging on that and figure out exactly what I'm referring to when I say that. But he's set to miss some time. So honestly, I love Odunze this week, and I love Luther Burden this week if DJ Moore is out. So this is a spot reserved specifically for the Bears offense and the Bears wide receivers. I really need to see Luther Burden break out this week, but we know we can count on Rome to deliver for us. So the Caleb Williams is predicted to be under the 2nd least quick pressure in the entire league this week. Shout out to you, Joey Stats. Joseph over at Quality Stats gave me that little nugget. If you haven't, go check out his Patreon and his Substack. It's incredible. I've gotten better as a player, and you should too. Hashtag not a sponsor, but a partner. Hey, shout out to you, Joseph. Nailed it. So anywho, going back to Caleb Williams' 2nd least predicted quick pressure in the league this week against the Saints. Okay, the Saints have been torched for at least 69 yards. Nice. And a score to opposing wide receivers in every game this season except the Giants game. And that's because the Giants turned over the ball too much and they were still trying to figure out life without Malik Neighbors. But that's a different story for a different day. And the Saints are allowing 0.89 fantasy points per drop back and 0.78 fantasy points per drop back in middle of the field close coverage. That would be cover 3, stuff like that. So all that to say, I love Rome Odunze. And if Luther Burden is going to get a featured role, please, Ben Johnson. Anyway, if we're going to get that, then yes, it's going to be an excellent day for Rome Odunze and the Bears wide receivers. So
what's good? You know the phrase, the house always wins? Well, not anymore with our new sponsor, Profit X. Profit X, America's #1 sports prediction market, is a peer-to-peer sports prediction market where users play against each other instead of a sports book versus the house. You almost always get the best price in any spread, money line, total, and player prop since you're playing against other people rather than the book. You know, it looks just like a sports book, but with way better odds. So what are you waiting for? Go download the app and use promo code FFD to claim up to $200 in profit cash on all the plays you use in the first 30 days of playing on site. Link in the description. Now, let's look at that Thursday night game. It's Monday right now when we're making this, so we don't have a lot of prop options, which is really where we've been making our bread and butter. But we got the Cincinnati Bengals at home versus the Steelers on a Thursday night. Last Thursday, we saw the Giants take care of business at home versus Philly. So let's ride that train on the home underdog on the short week, taking a little bit of that Joe Flacco magic and getting us a little dub here. Cincinnati Bengals +4 this week on your Monday night pick here. Peace.
I had to give you a couple bonus plays that I'm really excited about. And one is going to be Davante Adams versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The other being Jalen Coker making his season debut versus New York Jets. Coke boys, we back up, baby. So now all the good vibes and stuff are about to get sucked out of the room because you're going to get really mad at me because I'm giving you the Lost Boys for week 7 or 6 or 7. 7. Yeah. Look, guys, it's a lot. It's late. We're getting it done, but I'm still going to give you the bit. I'm not going to give you the business. I'm going to give you this list. And let's get into the list right now. So the Chef GPT Lost Boys for week 7. I feel like I needed to say no Diddy there, but let's get to the list. Number 4 is going to be Jakobi Meyers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Quietly, Trey Tucker has taken over as the number 1. And now, Jack Bech is taking a step forward. And Trey Tucker actually leads the team since week 3 in first read targets. And Trey Tucker is consistently outproducing Jakobi Meyers. Now, Jakobi Meyers is a noted Chiefs killer. He's performed and put up at least 17 fantasy points in full PPR in 4 of the last 5 meetings with the Chiefs, I believe. So this is, look, I'm walking on eggshells here, but I don't care. I have to, I've got to give you the information. You do what you want with it. So my number 4 Lost Boy is going to be Jakobi Meyers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. My number 3 Lost Boy this week is going to be an oldie but a goodie. It's going to be Michael Pittman versus the Chargers. So Michael Pittman has been great against cover 2 and man coverage, but his efficiency is cut in half when he faces cover 3 and cover 4, which the Chargers have played the majority of, cover 3 and cover 4 for the last 4 weeks. So Michael Pittman is my number 3 Chef GPT Lost Boy on the week. My number 2 is going to be, this is just hurting my soul because these are all guys that I've been in on early in their career, and now it just makes me sad. So I'm going to have to fade A.J. Brown this week. My number 2 Lost Boy is going to be A.J. Brown. So A.J. Brown's abysmal versus cover 2, which is, averaging only 0.04 fantasy points per route run versus cover 2, which Minnesota plays the majority of, and they're going to be getting back some key pieces. I think Harry Hitman Harrison Smith is going to be back in the secondary. I think Blake Cashman could be back. You can fact check me on that, but the defense had been a little bit more giving, especially on the ground. And that's another thing that concerns me. But if those guys are back, this turns into a Flores buzzsaw. And it's like just the little shop of horrors, or like a clown maze of nightmares for opposing quarterbacks and receivers because they can't get the ball. So my number 2 Lost Boy on the week is going to be A.J. Brown versus Minnesota. And my number 1, and I don't really know how to feel about this because I started off with, T. Higgins. Okay. T. Higgins being a guy that I was really excited about playing this week. And then I got into a couple of the numbers, and then I just don't really know how much I want to bank on Joe Flacco supporting 2 fantasy options. And so this is why T. Higgins became my least favorite player of the week. But let me give you just a little bit of context so that you don't think that I'm just here to hate on your favorite player if you're a T. Higgins truther. So T. Higgins has been putrid from a fantasy points per route run perspective, with over 22% of his routes coming against cover 3, and he's averaging 0.08 fantasy points per route run. Boys and girls, that's not good. So yeah, I'm just not a fan this week, for being totally honest. So yeah, he's going to make the list. He's on the list, and you can check it twice or do whatever you want to do with it. But it doesn't give me pride to do this or pleasure or anything of that nature. But my wide receiver 37 is going to be Jakobi Meyers. That's the number 4. My number 3 Lost Boy is going to be Michael Pittman at wide receiver 36 versus the Chargers. My number 2 Lost Boy is going to be wide receiver 24 on the week, A.J. Brown. And my number 1 Lost Boy is going to be wide receiver 21 on the week. It's going to be T. Higgins. So let me just run through the rankings. I mean, these are guys that I don't have to tell you to start, that if I'm telling you to start, then you just what are we doing here? So I still have Puka at my wide receiver 1, but I don't think he's going to play this week because they get the bye after taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, over in London. We got another 8 a.m. game or whatever. Super cool stuff. Love that for myself. Not really. Actually, yeah, I don't mind because it's more football. It's like asking there's too much bacon and cheese on my cheeseburger. Anyway, my number 2, Jackson Smith-Njigba, that goes without saying. Nico Collins, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson round out the top 5. Here at wide receiver 6 this week, I'm coming out the gates hot. I've got Rashee Rice against the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 8, Drake London, light-skin Al-Gaib, taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Number 9 is going to be Rome Odunze, the number 1 pleasure chess champion in your hearts. I don't have to tell you to start Rome Odunze, but I am because I just wanted a victory lap a little bit. And number 10 is going to be Davante Adams. So he's here because I'm not anticipating Puka playing, but I can't rule that out just yet because the Rams haven't ruled him out. So if he plays, he's wide receiver 1. If he doesn't, Davante Adams is going to get a huge bump. Here we have Cortland Sutton taking on the New York Giants. I'm 16 spots higher than he is in the model. Wide receiver 12 is going to be NFL young boy George Pickens, one of my guys. George Pickens taking on the Washington Commanders in a 54.5 point over-under game. Maybe I should have made him my pleasure. But again, he's a wide receiver 4 on the season, guys. You were starting him anyway. My number 13 is going to be Teddarell McMillan, the Big Pineapple, commanding a 25% target share, taking on the New York Jets. And if they move him around, which another nugget that I found this week is he's averaging 5.6 yards per route run from the slot. That is absolute dynamite. And now if we just get a little bit of touchdown luck, I'm going to be super excited about where Teddarell McMillan lands in spite of this matchup. I don't care about Sauce Gardner. Bro, we put Chick-fil-A sauce on everything, bro. I don't care about that. Number 14, Mike Evans, one of our pleasure chess champions, taking on the Detroit Lions. 15, Deebo Samuel in that game against the Dallas Cowboys with a 54.5 point over-under. 16, Jalen Waddle taking on the Cleveland Browns. 17 is Ladd McConkey. 18 is Stefon Diggs, another pleasure chess champion. 19 is going to be Brian Thomas taking on the Los Angeles Rams. And 20 is going to be Devonta Smith taking on the Minnesota Vikings. I don't love their matchup, but these are still really good players. T. Higgins is my number 1 lost boy for this week. Just not a huge fan, and the model still has him at wide receiver 22. I have him at wide receiver 21. We're right there. The outcome is just, everything tells us it's going to be bad, which means you should probably spend your life savings on T. Higgins versus the Pittsburgh Steelers because I'm fading him. So, fade the expert, if you will. Wide receiver 22 is going to be Ladd McConkey not Ladd McConkey. I'm looking at Keenan Allen. I said Ladd McConkey because I think this is wheels up for every single Chargers receiver this week. And that includes Trey Harris, but that's a different stash for a different day. My wide receiver 23 taking on the Las Vegas Raiders is going to be Xavier Worthy. Wide receiver 24 is going to be Arthur Juan Brown taking on the Minnesota Vikings. One of our lost boys, the number 2 lost boy on the week. Wide receiver 25 is going to be Jordan Addison, a pleasure chess champion. Why do I have Jordan Addison behind A.J. Brown if I like Jordan Addison this week? That's a great question. Chat. Well, because A.J. Brown's a safer bet for volume. We don't know who's starting at quarterback, but I do think that there's a better possibility for a ceiling outcome for Jordan Addison than there is for A.J. Brown this week. Does that do it? Okay, good. Now, my number 26 wide receiver is going to be DK Metcalf versus the Cincinnati Bengals. My number 27 is going to be Terry McLaurin if he plays versus the Dallas Cowboys. 28, pleasure chess champion. Number 5, Wan'Dale Robinson. Number 29 is going to be Matthew Golden taking on the Arizona Cardinals. 30 is going to be Chris Olave taking on the Bears. 31 is probably not going to be Marvin Harrison. He's going to be out, but he hasn't been ruled out yet. He's in the concussion protocol, but we can move him down and just put Josh Downs at wide receiver 31 or 32. I mean, he's gotten 7 targets in back-to-back games. It's worth picking him up. I think he could do well versus cover 3 and cover 4, which the Chargers have been playing a large amount of. Number 33 is going to be Jameson Williams. Now, this could be egregious just because Tampa just got lit up by Mac Jones, and Baker and Jared Goff is playing elite football. So this being a 53.5 point over under currently as I speak to you right now, Wednesday night at 9 Eastern time, 9:30. Anyway, that being said, I don't even know why I said it in Eastern time because I'm Central time, but whatever. Jameson Williams could go off this week. It's just been a little bit mercurial. And then my boy Luther Burden, wide receiver 34, taking on the New Orleans Saints. If we're going to get Luther Burden in like a semi-full-time role, he is going to blow up. We've seen the explosive plays. He scored on a 65-yard touchdown. He had a 37-yard catch on Monday Night Football. Free Luther Burden. Anyway, my wide receiver 35 is going to be Romeo Doubs. Now, do need to keep an eye on this because Christian Watson is practicing again, and even though, well, it might be fine if Dontavian Wicks is going to miss with ankle trouble, but keep an eye on this. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 35. My wide receiver 36 is going to be Jakobi Meyers at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I've already told you that he's one of the lost boys this week, and another lost boy closes us out. Wide receiver 37, Michael Pittman taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. So if you made it this far, thank you for liking, commenting, downloading, subscribing. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. This is so much fun. I don't really know what else to say. So I'll tell you this. There's people that saw what happened. There's people that know what happened. And there's people that ask what happened. Remember, there's ball watchers and ball knowers. Assign yourselves accordingly. Download the League Champ app in the Google Play Store and App Store. Peace.